This is Henry. He came to us with pretty extreme dog aggression and reactivity that had intensified to the point that he had actually redirected on other humans. The first thing I want to point out is that his manners on the leash were atrocious even when there was no dog around. If you have a dog that's reactive, the first thing you need to do is get your walk under control. And so that was our first step with Henry, was working on his leash manners in the training building at first to teach him to be more respectful and more responsive to our leash communication. Teaching Henry to have leash manners is about a lot more than just improving the walk. His behavior on the leash is actually indicative of the fact that he has no respect for the humans in his life. This had actually gotten to the point where on his first day here, when Amy, one of our trainers, was bringing him in from the yard, and she simply tried to stop him from pulling her through the door, he turned around, snapping at her repeatedly, resulting in ultimately tearing her shirt. Once I had done a little bit of work with Henry to get him to behave a little bit more respectfully, I wanted to introduce him to a group of dogs to see what was really underlying his reactivity. The first thing that you'll notice is I make sure Henry enters the yard calmly. This is vitally important. If you let a dog pull you in an excited state towards other dogs, you are setting yourself up for disaster. The next thing that I do is allow him to just settle down on the other side of a chain link fence. This allows the other dogs to get used to his presence and allows me to assess what his behavior is going to be like. Ultimately, the big thing is I want to make sure that, again, he's in a nice calm state before entering the yard. Once I felt he was ready and that he was in a good place mentally, I decided to bring him in. Observing how the other dogs react to him actually tells me a lot about his overall behavior. Although Henry was a little bit apprehensive, you can see he wasn't overly aggressive or reactive at all. What I learned right away is that we're not actually dealing with a dog-aggressive dog. We're dealing with a dog who needs to understand how to be respectful and a dog who becomes over-aroused in the presence of other dogs. Within only a few minutes, I decided that Henry was ready for a little bit more freedom, so I tucked his leash under his collar so I'm no longer holding on to him. By doing this, he's allowed to behave more naturally and interact more freely with the other dogs. This moment was really important. You can see there's actually a little bit of tension as Doc is approaching Henry. I'm watching very closely to see what happens. Ultimately, Henry made great choices. The interaction went well and both dogs walked away peacefully. At this point, I decided that Henry no longer needs the muzzle, and you could see that as soon as it comes off, he fully relaxes and is able to really be himself around the other dogs. Ultimately, this was a perfect first introduction into socialization. Although Henry came here for dog aggression, as you can see, sometimes things aren't as they appear.